This is part 2 of section 2.2, and in this lesson, to finish up this section, we're going to focus strictly on writing linear equations, and we're going to write them in slope-intercept form. And there's a couple of different ways. The problems are going to give us different types of information, and I want you to be able to take whatever information you're given, however it's given, and be able to write these linear equations. So starting off, I want to give you an example, a couple examples on what you're going to do on problems 26 through 30 on page 68. And we're going to change the book instructions just a little bit, because on that page, the book is going to have you write these equations in point-slope form. And I would like for you, again, to change this so that, as you can see, we're going to write the answers, the equations, in slope-intercept form. Okay, so what we're told is we have this line, and it's passing through 2 points. Well, just to refresh your memory a little bit, we've been discussing slope-intercept form. And in order to write this equation form, I need to know, well, I need to know a couple of things. I need to know where this line crosses the y-axis. That's the y-intercept. Nothing in my statement here tells me what the y-intercept is. I also need to know the slope. Well, they don't just come right out and tell me what the slope of this line is, but fortunately, you learned in Algebra 1, and we reviewed in part 1 of this lesson, the way we can come up with the slope if we know 2 points on a line. And I'll just briefly refresh your memory with that formula. So we're going to use this formula so that we can come up with the slope. All right, and so I'm going to do y2, which is 6, that's my second y, minus the first y, 6 minus 8. And then the denominator will be the second x, which is 7, minus the first x, which is negative 3. And then simplifying this, I get negative 2 over 10, which reduces to negative 1/5. So I know what's going to go in for m. I can substitute negative 1/5 in place of the variable m, because we've just discovered the slope of this line. Okay, well at this point I can choose. I don't need both of these ordered pairs any longer. I did need them in order to come up with the slope, but now I don't. I can just pick, and it doesn't really matter which one I pick. They're both on the same line, so I'm not really wrong in picking one or the other. I think I would rather stay away from negative numbers, and so I'm going to pick this ordered pair, the ordered pair 7, 6, and this looks very similar to what you were doing in the previous homework with section 2.2 part 1. You were given a point on a line, you were given the slope, and you were asked to write the equation. Well, at this point, we're basically doing that same problem. Remember, 7 represents x, and 6 represents y. And so let's replace those variables in my equation. 6. Remember, we're going to be able to replace m with negative 1/5. And x is going to be replaced with 7. So this is going to allow me to find b, or the y-intercept. Okay, so I got 6 is negative 7/5 plus b. And to make this easier to deal with, to come up with a common denominator, I'm just going to change the number 6, the natural number 6, into the rational number 30 over 5. And now I have common denominators that can be combined. All right. And so hopefully you see that in order to solve for b, I'm going to need to add 7/5 to both sides, and I'll try to squeeze it in down here. Maybe I'll put it over here. So b is going to be positive 37/5. Okay, so at this point, if you know the y-intercept and you know the slope, it makes writing slope-intercept form very easy. So I'll come over here with my final answer. Slope-intercept form will be y equals the slope, which is negative 1/5, times x, plus the y-intercept, which is 37/5. And that would be my answer then for this first example. So your equations, your answers will pretty much for this whole assignment are going to look like this when you're finished, this slope-intercept form. Okay, let's just try another one. Same concept, same idea. We're writing the slope-intercept of a line. This line passes through these 2 points. So the first thing I'm going to do is determine what is the slope of this line. And I'm going to use our slope formula, y2, which is negative 3, minus y1, which is 1, divided by x2, which is negative 4, minus x1, which is 5. The numerator would become negative 4. The denominator becomes negative 9. But a negative divided by negative is a positive. So that becomes positive 4/9. Okay, so now choose. You don't need both of these ordered pairs any longer. You really just need to pick one to work with. And again, I'll stay away from negative numbers. I'm just going to pick the ordered pair 5, 1. Really doesn't matter which one you pick. So we're going to replace, we'll put slope-intercept form up here in general. That's using variables. Now let's replace y with 1. M, the slope, is going to be replaced with 4/9. X is going to be replaced with 5 plus b. All right, so let's do some fraction work here. 4/9 times 5 is 20/9. If we change 1 into ninths, it would be 9/9. So now when I subtract 20/9 from both sides, 9 minus 20 is negative 11/9. All right, and so now that we know the y-intercept and we already discovered the slope, let's write the final equation. Y equals the slope, 4/9, times x minus 11/9, which is the y-intercept. All right, that's my answer for example number 2. Okay, now part 2 of my notes today, you'll see part 1 was the types of problems where we have to calculate slope knowing 2 points on the line. Well, now we move into this idea of writing the equation of a line that is parallel. We're told that a particular line is parallel to another line. Okay, for example, notice number 3 here. Write the equation, again, slope-intercept form. This equation is for a line that passes through this point, 3, 2, and it just so happens to be parallel to another line described by this equation. Well, I just wanted to remind you that 2 parallel lines, or more than 2, but parallel lines, if they truly are parallel, they have the same slope, but they obviously have different y-intercepts. If they didn't, if they had the same slope but the same y-intercepts, obviously that would just mean it's the same line. So the thing to keep in mind, which hopefully you already know, just maybe need a reminder, is parallel lines have the same slope. Okay, so I'm going to go to a screen so I can have a little bit more space to work on this problem. So here's what I'm given, okay? And I'm just going to divide this up into two parts. I'm given this information, and from this, I'm going to work on the new line that I'm asked to write for this problem. It says to write an equation, and I'll do that over here. Well, very simply, this given line is in slope-intercept form. The slope, of course, is the number in front of x, so the slope is -2. The y-intercept is 5. But I really just need to focus on what the slope is, because remember, if two lines are parallel, then they have the same slope, which means that if this given line has a slope of -2, then this new line that I'm supposed to write the equation for must also have a slope of -2. Okay? So let's see, what else are we told? This line that we're supposed to write the equation for passes through a point, and that point is the point 3, 2. So if you think about it, we're back to where we were before. We know the slope of a line. This goes back to homework for a couple of days ago. You know the slope, you know a point, you know that you're supposed to be writing slope-intercept form, so let's plug in order to solve for b. So this is just another way of presenting that same problem that hopefully you practiced several times a couple of nights ago. All right, so y is 2. The slope we know is -2 because these are parallel lines. X is 3. And we're going to find out what the y-intercept is. Okay, 2 equals -6 plus b. Looks like the y-intercept is going to be 8. So all I need to write slope-intercept form, I know I've said this before, I need the slope and I need the y-intercept, and so here we go. Y equals slope, -2 times x, plus y-intercept, which is 8. And there's my answer for this example number 3. So let's practice another one of those. Example number 4, same idea. A little different way of giving us information, because we're told that the line that we're supposed to write the equation for passes through this point, but the line is parallel to this other line, and it's given to us in standard form. Okay, well remember, what's true about parallel lines? They have the same slope. So I need to discover what the slope is for this line called x plus 2y equals 6. And I think I touched on this in a previous lesson. One way of determining slope that's really easy if you'll get used to it, when you're looking at standard form, now this is just for getting the slope of a standard form equation. You can just do this little formula. Remember, standard form means that this number a is the coefficient of x, and this number b is the coefficient of y, and then you've got this constant over here on the right. Well, if you want to know the slope of a standard form equation line, just take this first number, which in this case is 1, put it over the second number, which is 2, and then just change the sign. So I know that the slope of this line is -1/2. And you might be thinking, you know, I don't want to remember that. I would just rather go back to the old days when probably my Algebra 1 teacher said, let's just take standard form and let's put it in slope-intercept form. And that's okay. Hopefully you'll see that by doing so, you're going to get the same slope either way. And I just think this is a little faster, saves you a little bit of time. So we've determined that the slope of this line that's given in our problem is -1/2. Okay, well, now that we know the slope and we already are given a point that this line goes through that is going to give us our answer, let's write the equation. Okay, so we'll start here, and once again, We're going to take the given ordered pair. The y will be 3. The slope, since these are parallel, if this line has a slope of negative 1/2, then this line also has a slope of negative 1/2. The x will be substituted with 8. And I'm going to use those numbers to help me find the y-intercept. Negative 1/2 times 8 is negative 4. And we got the y-intercept, which is 7. And so now, with the slope and the y-intercept now discovered, we can write the equation. Y equals the slope, which is negative 1/2, times x, plus the y-intercept, which is 7. Okay, so we're almost home. We've looked at writing the equation for lines that are parallel. What about for lines that are perpendicular? When one line is perpendicular to another line. Okay, well, just a quick refresher. You probably already know this, but to be perpendicular means that two lines cross, and where they cross, there's a right angle that is formed. Okay, so that little symbol there means this is a right angle at this intersection point. So, what about slopes and perpendicular lines? Well, the thing about perpendicular lines, and here's my symbol that you'll see for perpendicular. Perpendicular lines have what we call opposite, two parts, opposite, reciprocal. I'm going to put like this, slopes. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, let's just do some examples just thinking about the slope. If one line, for example, has a slope of 2, then the line perpendicular to it would have a slope of negative 1/2. Okay, if this line over here had a slope of 2, then the perpendicular line to it, notice it's not just the opposite, but it's the opposite and reciprocal. All right, let's try another one. If I tell you that a line has a slope of 3/4, then if there's a line out there perpendicular to it, then it's got a slope of negative 4/3. I'm flipping and I'm changing. All right, maybe one more. If a particular line has a slope of negative 1/5, then the line perpendicular to that would have a slope of 5. Flip it, 1/5 becomes 5/1, and then change it. Okay, opposite, reciprocal slopes when you're dealing with perpendicular lines. So, with that in mind, let's, very similar as what we did with parallel lines, but we just got to keep in mind that concept of what are the slopes of perpendicular lines. So let's write the equation. Well, first of all, let's determine the slope of the line for this equation that's given to us. For the line y equals 3/4 x plus 2, well, the slope of that line is 3/4. Okay, well, what about the line perpendicular to that? Well, remember the little drill that we just did. If there's a line perpendicular to this, then it's got a slope of negative 4/3. Okay, flip it, that's the reciprocal, and then opposite, change the sign. All right, so we're working on this perpendicular line. It's got a slope of negative 4/3, and we're told in the problem that it also passes through the point 6,1. Okay, so I am now finished with this. I got some people that like to go back and get other information, but once you've decided on what the slope is that you need from these given equations, then just ignore them. Same thing for these. Once you've decided, you've determined what the slope is that needs to be used for the equation that you're supposed to write, don't go back and get any other information from that equation. You're finished with it. It's served its purpose. Okay, so let's plug in just like we were doing before. Y is 1. The slope is negative 4/3. X is 6. And we're going to find out what the y-intercept is. 1 equals, if we multiply negative 4/3 times 6, we get negative 24/3, which is negative 8. And if we solve for b, adding 8 to both sides, we get b is 9. All right, so we know the slope, we know the y-intercept. Hopefully you know the drill at this point. Let's write the equation. Y equals the slope, negative 4/3, x plus 9. All right, let's try one more. Same idea. We're writing the equation for a line that goes through this point, and it's also perpendicular to another line. Well, do you remember earlier in this lesson how I showed you how you can find the slope of a line that's in standard form? Well, let's see if you remember. It's the opposite of a over b. Okay, remember a is the number in front of x, which is 1. B is the number in front of y, which is 2. So the slope of this line that is given to us is negative 1/2. So I'll just go this way. All right, so if there's a perpendicular line out there to this line, it must have a slope of positive 2. Okay, remember, opposite makes it positive, reciprocal makes it flip. Okay, so again, we've discovered the slope that needs to be used, so just if you have to, don't be tempted, just mark this out. You're done. You don't need this equation anymore once you've determined the slope that needs to be used for this equation that the problem is asking for. All right, y equals mx plus b, y is 3, m is 2, x is 8, and we're going to solve for b. Subtract 16 from both sides. We got b is negative 13. And so now, with the slope and the y-intercept known, we can write the equation. Y equals 2 slope x minus 13. All right, for some reason, these types of problems tend to give people a little trouble. And I noticed on our Algebra 1 assessment, we did not do very well as a group on these types of problems. So we'll practice them some, and hopefully this video will help. But if not, if you need more help, just come and see me, and I will be glad to assist you.